So this past weekend we launched our next menu, the Nasturtium menu, as we're staring headfirst right into summer, and all those fun summer ingredients are starting to show. They'll definitely just keep getting better and evolve over the next few months, but it's great to get our hands on them now. So to talk about some of the dishes, our first courses, I think they're really fun. We had a lot of fun kind of playing with these, and they both have a little bit of their own unique ethnic vibe to them. But the first one is this gorgeous summer squash coming from Happy Acre Farms. What we do is we brush it with a little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then just get a really nice hard grill on it, but make sure we keep it nice and crunchy in the middle. Then we cool that down and cut it up, so you're eating the zucchini like a salad, but it does have that nice kind of smoky char that we get from the grill. Then we dress that up, and it has a good Greek vibe to it with a little whipped feta, some dried crumbled olives, a charred tomato vinaigrette, and then some fresh za'atar that our farmer Fred is growing for us. Za'atar kind of has this nice oregano, marjoram flavor to it. Has a little bit of pepperiness, a little grassiness, and it really ties it together and gives it that Mediterranean vibe. And then on the opposite side of the globe, we're using our Liberty ducks, which we love and use them quite a bit, but we turn that into a pho, so Vietnamese noodle soup. And we use the word noodles kind of loosely. But we slow roast the bones, and then we make a broth that takes about 36 hours. And then we season that up and treat it like a traditional pho, with the exception we're using all duck parts instead of beef. Some of the flavorings with the star anise and Szechuan pepper and burnt onion and ginger. So really nice, rich, unctuous broth. Then we dress up the bowl with some common pho garnishes, but instead of using actual rice vermicelli, we're using these gorgeous radishes from Happy Acre. So we cut them in a manner that looks like vermicelli noodles. And then we dress it up with some thin-sliced Liberty duck breast that's been cured, and then Liberty duck meatballs that we use from the leg meat. So it has all those familiar flavors of a pho, but it's kind of twisted up using an incredible product like the Liberty ducks. Our appetizers on the 5-course, we had some fun with this, and we wanted to incorporate a lot of those summer flavors, but also use some great products from people that we're used to working with. One of the ones that I'm really psyched about is we're doing crispy cheese curds. So they're going to be battered with an IPA beer batter. And then we cook them until they're nice and crispy and chewy and have that little squeak that you're familiar with cheese curds. But these cheese curds are coming from our friends at Oakdale Dairy. So once a week they cut their curds after they do their pressing, and then the next day we go and pick them up from them. So they're incredibly fresh. Cheese curds have to be fresh. They actually have a very short shelf life and they deteriorate pretty quickly. But there's a little bit of roasted green chili crema on the side, so it's kind of an inside-out jalapeno popper in that sense. The last menu, we've been preserving some of our local cod, both black cod and ling cod, to make salt cod. And I wanted to do a dish that I love doing. It's a dish that I loved eating when I was in Spain, but we're doing salt cod croquetas. And these are Madrid-style croquetas, so there's no potato. They're actually a bechamel base, so that's a nice creamy sauce. But we make this base, and then we fold the salt cod in at the end, and once it chills, we're able to shape it and then wrap it in some panko breadcrumbs. And then we cook those, and then once they're cooked, you crack them open, and it warms the sauce back up, and it's all creamy and comes out. And then we serve that with a little bit of romesco and shaved fennel just to lighten things up. And then so far, many people have been happy to hear that our pork belly is back. So this version takes a little bit of a Southeast Asian vibe to it, but we make from scratch a hoisin sauce, but an extra element that we put in there is some black garlic. It's an ingredient that's not traditionally part of a hoisin sauce, but it really cooperates with the flavors that are in there and adds that deep level of kind of umami and that toasty sweetness that you get from black garlic. Some of the early season peaches we're getting from K&J Orchards go on top, and it gives it that nice balance. It pulls the sweetness. Pork belly loves the sweetness, but these peaches have some really good acidity to them as well, so it cuts through the richness of the pork belly. Our two pastas for this menu, two very different approaches, but they're both really, really fun in their own unique sense. So we're doing bucatini with some andouille sausage. So andouille sausage, it's a southern Italian style sausage, loaded with chilies. It's got Calabrian chilies and a few other dried chilies that we mix into it. But it has this richness because it is a higher fat sausage, and it has a nice kind of punch from those chilies. And then we cook that down with a little bit of ground tomatoes and shallots, very, very simple. Toss that with some bucatini pasta and fava beans from Jacobi Farms, which are incredible right now, just super bright and green and sweet. And then to top it off, we use a little fresh Sonoma goat cheese, which helps kind of balance out that sharp, aggressive heat that's coming from the andouille. By no means is it overly spicy, but the goat cheese and the chilies work really nicely together. And then our other pasta, we're making our Cavitelli, but we did a little twist this time, and instead of using water in the dough, we use carrot juice. So the Cavitelli itself has this awesome, bright, vibrant orange color. And then that gets tossed with the basil peas stew, so similar to a pesto, but there aren't going to be any nuts in there. And then we plate that over top of a carrot puree, a little bit of grated aged Gouda, also from our friends at Oakdale Dairy. And then we finish that off with a carrot crumble. So after we make the juice to use in the pasta dough, there's all the carrot pulp left in the juicer. And then we dry that out and mix that with a little bit of seasoning and salt and kind of put it on top, and it acts as like a nice crunchy breadcrumb substitute, but we're using the whole part of the vegetable from start to finish and nothing goes to waste. Another Spanish dish that I brought in on this menu, it's going to be on our 3-course menu as an entree, is Zarsuela. It's a Catalan-style seafood soup. And what it is not literally translated, but what Zarsuela means is variety show. And you kind of take that to the extent of what kind of products are going in there. It has that vibe of bouillabaisse and cioppino, but it is distinctly Spanish for a few reasons. Some of the elements that are in the base, there's saffron, there's a paste made with almonds and garlic, but also there's a little bit of cured chorizo in there, and that's what kind of gives it that extra Spanish vibe to it. But it also adds a whole lot of depth to it. And then we just get our hands on some of the best seafood that we can find around here, and right now summer's a great time for our local seafood. But we have these new mussels that are coming from Tamales Bay, which are incredible. They're large, they're plump. We're using some squid from Monterey, some rock cod from Sonoma Coast, and then we're using some clams from Washington. Our veggie entree I'm really excited about. This is something that I make for myself quite a bit, but we're making falafel. We're using Jacopi's butter beans instead of a traditional garbanzo. One, because I want to use a product that we know and we love from one of our partners, but two, I think the butter beans add just a little bit extra sweetness compared to some of the earthier flavors you get from garbanzos. But we grind up the butter beans, and then we season them like a traditional falafel, a lot of fresh herbs, a lot of spices, and then we serve that with some Israeli couscous that has a little harissa folded into it, and then a little bit of mint yogurt, which also helps kind of balance out the heat from the harissa, and then finish it off with some grilled white apricots from K&J Orchards, which are incredible. Very short season on those, but when we can get our hands on them, we really like it. This is a fun dish, and it just so happens to be vegetarian, but you don't miss meat in this at all. It's a really satisfying dish. On our 5-course entrees, we have 3 really cool entrees that we brought in. So I'm really excited about this particular beef. So we're serving a beef tenderloin. It's called Galician Vintage Beef Company. So they're based out of Australia. We get them through Creamco Meats. And what they're doing is they're mimicking the vaca vieja, the older cow style of cow farming that became popular in northwestern Spain, in Galicia, which is where they took their name from. So your typical cow that goes to market, your meat cow, depending on where you're sourcing it, if it's a lower quality, that cow probably was slaughtered at about 18 months of age. You know, the meats that we typically get through Creamco, they're an older cow, probably about 2.5 to 3 years old. But these cows are averaging about 5 years. Now, they're 100% grass-fed and grass-finished, and typically that can offer sometimes a little bit of chew, a little bit of toughness. But with these cows, they have this long life and they're on pasture the whole time, and they get the opportunity to develop this incredible marbling, and the meat is ridiculously tender. I mean, to the point when we cut it, we have to be very careful, and the knives have to be incredibly sharp. But the flavor on this is like nothing else. It has this complexity, this depth to it, that oftentimes I think beef tenderloins lack. Beef tenderloins, they're great for their texture, but they don't have the same kind of flavor or richness that you might get from, say, a ribeye or a New York strip. This beef changes that completely. It's an incredible program. It's very, very sustainable in their practices, and we're really excited to use that. Keeping with those amazing rabbits that we get from Victory Rabbits in northern Washington. So we're using the loin this menu. We used the legs last menu. We wrap the loins in a little bit of prosciutto and then gently roast that, and I wanted to keep this dish very simple just to highlight the incredible quality of the rabbits. But we use the rabbit bones and we roast them, and we make a sauce bordelaise, which is typically made with beef bones. But we use the rabbit bones, and it has all those same flavors that a sauce bordelaise would have with the red wine, shallots, and thyme. And then we finish that on the rabbit table side, and we serve that with a little bit of roasted oyster mushrooms from our friends at Deadwood Mushrooms, and then top it off with some sweet alyssum flowers and crushed hazelnuts. Taking kind of a North African Mediterranean vibe to our fish dish. So we're starting off the menu with some incredible yellowtail that was caught in Southern California off Catalina Island. And the fish may change based off availability and what's coming out of the water, and that's one of the cool things about our program is that we're flexible just like our fishermen are flexible. Some days they're catching a lot, some days they're catching a little, some days they're catching some fish, and some days they're catching others. And I prefer it that way. I don't want to have one fish that sticks on the menu because it handcuffs us to have to source it maybe from a place that doesn't practice the same sustainability practices that our fishermen practice, or that it's being frozen or it's being shipped from somewhere else. We want to get our hands on the best quality product we can, so we have that flexibility. So it may be the yellowtail, it may be some sustainably caught tuna, many other different fish, but the idea is we're going to keep it kind of a meatier fish. We're going to put it on the grill and make sure it's a nice medium rare medium fish. We're serving that with some cauliflower that's been tossed with Berber spice, little caper and sultana raisin sauce underneath, and then finished with the salsa seca of pine nuts and pumpkin seeds. What that is, it's kind of just barely tied together with a little bit of olive oil and parsley, and you really get a nice toasty nuttiness from the seeds and the nuts. And for desserts, some really fun ones. I'll start with one that I'm particularly fond of. So we made Pop-Tarts. So we're using Triple Delight blueberries while they're still in season. The season's not going to last much longer, so I want to be able to use them. I love working with Kim and her family at Triple Delight. The quality is incredible. So we use a puff pastry dough to kind of mimic the Pop-Tart, and then we make a jam with the blueberries and top that with some Bellwether Farms Jersey ricotta. We bake those off to order, which is one of the reasons I put them on the 5-course menu. So nothing pre-baked. The order comes in, they go in, it takes about 35 minutes. By the time you're finished with your first 4 courses, your Pop-Tart's ready to come out. And then we finish it off with a little bit of lemon balm icing. So we make the icing, we steep lemon balm in there, and I love that combination of lemon balm and blueberry. Lemon balm, it kind of has this minty, citrusy note to it. It actually is in the mint family, but it plays off those earthy, sweet flavors that you get from the blueberry. Keeping donuts, people love our donuts, and we love our donuts here too. And this one took some inspiration from the flavors of Mexican hot chocolate. So the donuts we toss in a sugar that has some cinnamon and a touch of cayenne pepper at the end. Not so much that it's spicy, it just has a little bit of warmth to it. And then on the side, a nice warm cup of melted Valrhona chocolate for you to dunk your donuts into. And our last dessert is a dulce de leche panna cotta. So we make a panna cotta and we flavor it with some dulce de leche, and then we set it. And once it is set, before we serve it, we actually put a little bit more dulce de leche right in the middle. So when you break into the panna cotta, you have that little swirl in the middle. Then we take some strawberries that we get from Rudy Vasquez's farm, slow roast those and make a little coulis with it and top it off. The strawberries are going to give a little bit of acidity, a little bit of tang to kind of cut through the sweet richness of the panna cotta, and then we finish it off with some crushed pink peppercorns.